let's jump into our college football playoff predictions. Mason, you want to kind of guide us through this? This is your baby right here. So
This is.
I'm gonna let you
This
I'm gonna
is.
let you talk us through this bad boy.
Well, not a whole lot has changed really. We moved Texas in. Here are the newcomers to this prediction. Texas slides in and firmly plants himself at number 5, the first SEC team behind Georgia. And I think that's pretty fair just based on what we know and projecting their schedule moving forward. I think that Georgia is kind of the only team left on the schedule that really poses a threat to Texas. They do have a pretty easy schedule for the rest of the year. So Texas moves up to number 5. 1 through 4 just about stays the same. We do flip Ohio State and Oregon based on what we've seen from Oregon so far. So Ohio State moves into that number 2 slot. I feel pretty confident in 1 through 4 at this point. But moving on to number 6, Tennessee, which I believe we had Tennessee at 6, so no movement there. I think that they're really good. It's going to be tough to kind of compare Tennessee to Texas since they don't face head to head this year. I think that both teams could end up being 11-1 and kind of in some sort of SEC tiebreaker for that SEC championship game there. That's going to be really interesting. I mentioned Oregon sliding down to number 7. You got to slide them down, right? And then Ole Miss is another team that could end up with only one SEC loss to a Georgia, and so there could be a weird situation where you've got a tiebreaker between Ole Miss, Texas, and Tennessee, all teams that don't play each other, if I'm not mistaken. And so how does that tiebreaker work out if they all have one SEC loss? All of them coming to Georgia. How do you break that head to head? I haven't heard the official ruling from the SEC on that yet. I'm sure it's out there since the season has started, but I know whenever I first did this prediction in the preseason, there were no tiebreaker rules out yet, so it's kind of tough to rank 5, 6, and 8 there for the SEC. Moving on to number 9, we got to put USC in there. Give them their flowers. I think that they really look like one of the best teams in the Big Ten at this point. We've said here recently that they're probably the third best team in the Big Ten. So until they prove otherwise, I'm going to have them as the third best team in the Big Ten in the college football playoff as well. Really interesting matchup there too between SC and Ole Miss. Of course, Lane Kiffin, you know, coached at USC for a period there. Could he maybe get a chance to kind of get revenge against his old team? That would be an interesting matchup. And then Clemson kind of slides in at number 10. I kind of struggled between Clemson and Louisville, here to kind of find that second ACC team. But I think that Clemson might be a little bit ahead of Louisville right now based on the roster and based on what we've seen. But that'll all play itself out. I'm not concerned about that. And also, I think it's fair to point out that we had Notre Dame in this prediction.
Yeah.
And the fact that Notre Dame loses to Northern Illinois, that allows a second ACC team or a second Big 12 team to slide in. And right now, I'm giving that to Clemson. That definitely could be changing here in the future. And then Penn State, I don't like what I saw against Bowling Green. I think that the offense looks to be a step ahead of where it was last year. The defense is noticeably a step back from where it was last year. So maybe we got a little bit of a wash for Penn State. They do have a pretty favorable schedule, though. I think that they'll be able to navigate it. No Michigan on the schedule this year for Penn State. We'll have to wait and see, but I think that Penn State could still be a playoff team when it's all said and done. And then at number 12, I kind of talked about it earlier in the show, but Boise State looks like the best kind of at-large team, outside of the Power Four. It's going to be a little bit of a battle, I think, between them and probably Liberty. But right now, based on what we've seen, I think that Boise State just kind of looks like the better team on film.
Yeah, I think so. Liberty was more in there just kind of by the fact of their schedule, who they play, but they may have just, I guess, lost too much off of their roster. lost a really good quarterback off their roster, which is obviously a big deal. I like all this stuff. I mean, I like every bit of it. Penn State is Penn State, Boise State, certainly the weakest links out of these 12. So I feel like they're in the right spots there, 11 and 12 at least to fit my eye. Clemson kind of following them. The rest of these teams I feel like are let's see, Clemson, USC, Boise State, Penn State. I don't feel like those 4 teams have a legitimate chance to win a national championship.
Right.
The rest of these teams, I feel like have at least a somewhat legitimate chance. Utah is probably not, but love Miami, love Ohio State. Tennessee is certainly a dark horse for the national championship. Yeah, I like all of those, and then Georgia, Texas, Ole Miss. I think those are no brainers. Yeah,
Well,
this
and
looks.
I think
It
it's
makes a lot of
also
sense to me.
I think it's also fair to question now, based on what we've seen from Missouri, if if the SEC shouldn't get 5 teams in, based on what we've seen, and maybe a Clemson or a Penn State are kind of those teams that are the first ones looking out, on the outside looking in,
Yeah.
I guess I should say, and because I mean, Missouri's got a really favorable schedule. No Georgia on the schedule. No Texas on the schedule. They do have to face Alabama and Oklahoma, but Texas A&M. I mean, it's a pretty favorable schedule for Missouri. So I definitely kind of want to find some room for them. I'm just not confident in putting 5 SEC teams into the college football playoff right now, knowing what the committee has done in the past. I think that in order for that to happen, the ACC kind of has to cannibalize, and the Big Ten has to cannibalize on themselves. And you're going to have to see Penn State drop a game to a team that they shouldn't, and then same with Clemson or Louisville. We'll kind of have to see how those 2 matchups work out there. But really interesting stuff, and I'm kind of anxious to see what the SEC does, because they're very top heavy this year, and I think that they do have 5 of the top 12 teams when it's all said and done.